Grandchildren, today I come and I want to share some stories with you so that these stories will never die. These stories are going to be yours, your responsibility to carry on for the next generation. Someday when you're parents, when you are grandparents, you're going to be ensured that your grandchildren, your children know these stories.
When I introduce myself, I am Lakota from the Black Hills, or from the Ochete Shakoin, from these 7 nations, because the reservations are a very recent phenomena for us. You know, we've not been in reservations most of our thousands of years of existence as a people. So that is a really new thing. So I try to encourage young people to think about their identity in a more bigger way, as part of this the 7 fireplaces, or else as an individual identity and what language they speak, or something, or even their tioshpae, that extended family. Now, back in the day, our extended tioshpaes were the most important part of our identity. What tioshpae do you belong to? We didn't ask, we asked, who are your relatives? And that's how we identified ourselves. Who are your relative? Who are you related to? Who are your mom and dad? Who are your grandparents? So even the old ones today, when they introduce themselves, that's what they'll first say. They'll tell you who their relatives are. And one of the reasons why is then they're letting you know that I may be a relative of yours. And that's really important, to let somebody know that you may be a relative of theirs, because that connection is really important.
We call it Otechi Shakoi. We call it that. The reason we call it that is because you look up in the sky at night, there's a dipper that's got 7 stars. Each star represents our 7 campfires. That's our flag, with a blue background. And so we have that, and that's the meaning of our 7 campfires. Each one has a dialect, and we speak Indian together. We speak, but we each understand each other.
You are in some way related to somebody, and that comes first before anything else. And by blood, we are related. We do what we need to do with each other. You take care of each other. But when you take on a relative willingly and by choice, that relationship is even more sacred. It's even more of a commitment, because now you're by choice or by some circumstance are bringing a relative in to your tioshpaya. The way it was put to me is, if you make a relative through the hunka ceremony, which is a ceremony which is very spiritual also, but one of commitment. I was told by my father and my mother is that if you bring in somebody into your family and make them a relative, if one is to get sick, if your sister over here, your blood sister, is sick, and then the hunka relative, who may be a sister also, is sick over here, who would you have to take care of, go to first? And with the hunka relationship, you go to the sister you brought into the family, because the sister here has your family there with her, taking care of her. So your first commitment, your commitment is to the sister over here, to the relative who you brought in to take care of them, because now they become more, that relationship is one that is very spiritual, but also one of commitment, and vice versa.
Well, Ella Deloria really put it across so simple. She said, kinship is the all-important matter, she said.
We observe natural law, and I'll give you an example of natural law. When I talk to my children and when my grandparents and my father talked to me about becoming a young woman, I remember my father set me down and he said, okay, he said, since you know so much and you're 16 now and you know everything in the world, he said, I want you to sit on this porch and I'm going to go to the post office, and when I come back, I want you to tell me the state of the world and how smart you are and what do you think you need to do as a potential mother. And I said, well, and I thought, oh no, he's going to be right again and I'm not going to know it. And so he gets in his car and he drives up to the post office, and I'm waiting for him, and I'm sitting on my grandma's porch and I'm looking all over and looking out at the trees, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to be seeing? Then he comes back and he says, did you see it? And I said, no. And he said, okay. He said, all the time that you've been sitting here, there's this little bird up on this branch, and that little tiny bird is carrying 10 times its weight. It's going over here and it's getting a piece of branch, it's taking it back over there. Somehow it's making this little nest. And he said, you can be assured that that little bird is not going to lay an egg until that nest is done. So he looked at me and he said, okay, Miss Smart Know-It-All. He said, do you have a nest? And I said, no. And he said, well, that's what you have to learn. He said, look outdoors and you watch the animals and the birds, and their behavior essentially tells you how to behave.
Our identity on a very baseline level is very political. We're born into political statuses that a lot of times we don't really understand fully. And so being part of South Dakota, being part of the education that I was a part of, I knew a lot of my history because of my mother. But I've witnessed people learn about the true history from being in a classroom to being sitting around a fire and a campfire or at a kitchen table and learning the real history and learning the real stories of the voices that aren't heard a lot of times. And that is traumatic for kids. So I really appreciate this.
Our law, the Indian way of life, our law is the law of nature. And you never could go wrong in the law of nature. We know that without being written. We know that by heart, and we know that we know what's right and wrong.
Long time ago, our grandfathers, the way that life was out here, there was plenty of buffalo, a lot of elk, plenty of deer. The rivers were full of fish. A man could get up in the morning, decide whether, I think today I will go track an elk, to go hunt an elk. Or maybe today I'll go fishing. Or maybe today I'll stay home with the wife. Maybe I'll just kick back and relax today. Or maybe I'll go be a problem to the crows over there today. He could decide what he wanted to do. Lived out his life and go hunting, go fishing, decided not to do anything. Then Western civilization came out here and thought they could improve on a system like that with their time clock. And it's a strange world we live in today when we have to follow the clock. Rush, rush, rush. It's gets you old too fast. So slow down and enjoy your youth as you're growing up. As life gets faster as you get older. Some days you're feeling your days are boring. I used to feel that way when I was young. There's nothing to do. Believe me, when you get older, the days are not long enough to get everything you want to do done in one day.
Ke
When she first came, and we decided, she said she was going to marry me, okay? And she said, where are we going to live? Where are we going to live? So I said, that time we was at Cherry Creek. Right north from here on the creek, there's a land up there that's fine. And there's a cave, big cave, I said, with canvas doors. And we're going to live in that cave. She said, okay, that's all right with me. And I went to, and then she said, where are you going to live? My aunt said she was living then. And here Josie said, she said, Dave said, they're back there in the cave. And then she looked at me real hard, you know. I could tell she was mad, you know. She really looked at me. I can't let like that. She said, you telling her a lie. She says, how do you expect to get a wife like that? How do you expect to get married a woman like that? Why do you want to live in a cave? She really got mad at me for that. So after that, I never said anything about living